Hi, thank you for joining us on what's a really sunny afternoon, or so I've heard.
Sunny here.
Absolutely, yeah. Mildly blinding. Can you see a screen? You're happy? You're comfy?
Yeah.
Lovely. Hello. We're here to talk not just about Beyoncé, but also what it means to be with world-class talent and how to work with them. This sits at the front of every deck that we have, and I thought it was hilarious to keep it in, seeing as this is the least confidential talk, and we're about to give you loads of gossip. So here it is, Pleasing Beyoncé, aka how to collaborate with superstar celebs, sports legends, and artists. We're going to tell you three stories today. And in each of those stories, we're going to tell you the lesson that we learned. So when you are working with these people who are some of the most creative people in the world, you can take these lessons and apply them yourself, because I'm sure everyone in this room either is using these opportunities to connect with really creative people, or wants to and will be doing so in the future. This is us. We're Wonderful Things, Katie and myself, and we have a third who is Jamie. We've known each other for about 10 years, and we've existed for how long? 6 months?
6 months.
There we go. So Katie and I met at Droga, and Jamie, who's not with us today, who buoyed this off to be at Vogue, which is totally valid, um, is our third member. And then we have staff around the world. Most of our work is global. And we frame ourselves as experts in the art of attention, how you hold attention, whether that's for a moment or for a long period of time. So this is our first story. We're going to be talking to you about Lewis Hamilton and some work with Tommy Hilfiger. And specifically, this is our lesson. It's a big deal for them too. So when you think of Lewis Hamilton, this is what you think of. This is how we're used to seeing him, completely at ease, on top of the world, one of the most talented humans who does one of the things that very, very few people can do. And we see him like this, joking around, having a laugh, being so confident, and making everything he does look really easy. And we even see him like this, really in his element. But the story we're going to tell you today is something quite different. Uh, he is normally full of bravado, he's an expert in his field, but when he was launching his fashion label and he was making a collaboration, he was in a really different space. Katie, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we worked with Lewis when he became global menswear ambassador for Tommy Hilfiger. And it was his first ever fashion collection. And he'd dreamed of that since he was a kid. He would always talk about how his kind of walkout when he was wearing his own clothes was so important to him because it was a time where he got to kind of be himself, style himself, not just be Lewis on the track. So we actually did a huge event with him in Shanghai around the Shanghai Grand Prix. We then did various other events around the world, and then his massive catwalk show in Shanghai as well, which was in front of the iconic skyline. So it was huge. It was obviously big budgets, which is always bloody lovely. But we got to work really closely with him, and it was really endearing how important it was to him.
And I think this is the interesting thing. He'd had this long-held dream to go into fashion and have his own label. And in a moment, we'll see some of his quotes, and you would think he was as in awe as we are when we are working with these people. But also, he got a chance to work with Tommy Hilfiger, who is not just a legend in American fashion, but really changed the face of 90s fashion, meant it open to completely different people. And this is a really interesting concept when you're working with world-class celebrities, that they have their own fan base too. They can fanboy when they come into the rooms together. And I think this picture is so lovely because Tommy is creating a safe space for Lewis to try something new and collaborate. Um, and so this is the moment when they're meeting and what it means to connect. And it's really interesting to think about how iconic that moment is. And you can see, I won't read you the quote, but you can see that it's something that he's always wanted. And this is really interesting how those deals come about in the first instance. And then our job can be to facilitate the smoothness, to allow these two very different people to work together. Do you want to say a bit about that?
Yeah, I remember before we worked with him, he just did an F1 interview talking about how he'd never designed anything, but it was a dream of his. And so when they first got in the room together, you could see his eyes light up at this opportunity that he'd been given. And I think seeing someone who's already number one in the world at what they do then become a complete kind of student to someone else who's utterly iconic is wonderful, and it really humanizes them. And I think seeing that from the beginning just made me want to make this so special for him and really get him involved in every part of it and make it feel really authentic to him so that he didn't feel like he was an imposter at any time, because you could see that, we all suffer from imposter syndrome. I have it literally right now. But you could see that he had that, and it was scary for him. So trying to make his dream a reality was huge, and being part of that journey, it was so important to do it in the right way and in a really supportive way.
And then when you think about that, there's this is a quote when he was talking to Vogue about it, this idea of like, I can't believe how many people have like been part of this. And he's saying he can't believe to see the physical presentation of the work and the clothes, seeing people wearing it, and people coming together to support him, even the fact of like having a party to celebrate. And this is like a range of different famous people, all with very different tastes when it comes to fashion.
Mm. Yeah, and I think as well, what was huge, and we've all worked with brands where, the founder, Tommy, doesn't go to everything, but actually for Lewis, he did. And that again blew Lewis's mind because it was so special, it meant so much. And I think that when Lewis was so invested in this, I mean, it made the project work way harder than any of us could have dreamed. The, the line sell out within 24 hours when we did our first event in Shanghai, which was absolutely massive. And again, it was kind of a thing that then he started promoting it even further, and then the next drop sold out, I think it was in 12 hours. So it was stuff that you can't really dream of when you're planning a project. But the authenticity and the fact he was gobsmacked, when Gigi, who had been the previous women's wear ambassador, came over and walked in the show in Shanghai. She actually did that for no fee. She was out of contract. She came and did that because she could see, the experience she'd had for the past 3 years. He was entering that, and it was so huge for him.
And sometimes when we're creative or production partners, our job is to be invisible, to create a frictionless experience, to allow things to happen. But sometimes it's also about having the space to stand up and say, hey, I've got a way to contribute to this. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're thinking about when you're adding to make, you see an opportunity to make something special, and you're talking to Tommy or talking to Lewis to say, hey, this should happen?
I think it's about, I mean, the classic is make them think it's their idea. But
Katie will just tell you the truth.
yeah, I'm very candid and an oversharer as well. Yeah, it's about listening to what they're saying and only presenting the ideas that actually fit with their hopes and dreams. So if you go in with something that just feels so completely left field, some talent, celebrities, clients, creatives sometimes need that, but I think it's about identifying when they don't need that and when this is so important to them that actually finding the way to bring their dream to life in a way that you can is really important.
And if we look at this picture here, this making the dream into a reality, you can also sit down there if you want. It's really interesting to look at these two people. It looks like they've known each other forever, and I think that's about Tommy extending the safety net for Lewis to say, I've done this all my life. And can you imagine if Tommy Hilfiger was in an F1 car? I would be terrified. But it's creating that space, and also saying that he had this amazing quote where he was saying, look, I really, really love Lewis's passion for life, but I also love his fashion sense. Right? This is not just about connecting with someone from a different world and saying, yeah, go ahead. I actually genuinely love what he's presenting and what he's bringing. I like the clothes he's making, and I can't imagine a better success than that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's where, you know, again, in that time before this happened, the thought of Lewis Hamilton going to the Met Gala was completely foreign to anybody. But he had it in his sights, and I think that's the point of someone that, has since a kid had dreams in his sights, and he's made them a reality. And I think in an interview he said that, you don't have to be in one box. He wants to be in two boxes, and his second box is fashion. And he's working really hard to make that happen. So I think as much as Tommy made it a really safe space for Lewis, I think the whole teams, like the design team that Lewis went into a room with, like every person matters. And actually, this is probably a different story slash lesson that we could tell. But every single person in that project mattered to Lewis in terms of his interaction with them. From the driver that picks him up from the airport, having a nice chat with him, listening when he's saying how excited and how nervous he is, to the runner that's getting his crafty for in his green room, to the celebrities he's engaging with on stage and making sure that he's met them beforehand. They're not just meeting on stage and having an awkward chat that we've pre-organized as a production company, creative company, brand, etc. So everything matters to make it work. Sorry, sidebar.
No, but I think it's absolutely right. If you've seen the Ron Howard documentary on the Beatles, there's a moment when the Beatles are doing their first American tour, and they talk about every interaction takes a slice of them, a slice of their soul. You get in the lift, and the porter in the lift wants to be present with you and have a moment. You get into the room, and the person looking after the room is starstruck and desires that thing. Robbie Williams was talking about it recently, about when you're having a bad mental health day and someone's asking for your autograph, but what happens when he's dealing with a family member who's unwell? Does he have to be the public face? And the idea that anybody around you is unfortunately draining you because they're a fan. And this is, I think, the very opposite of that. It's the ability not only to not ask for something as a member of the crew or the team, but to actually give something, to lend something of your energy, of your spirit. And we'll talk about this in the Beyoncé example a little bit later, but also becoming comfortable around these people who do amazing things and are incredibly famous.
Mm.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this. How meaningful it was for Lewis is also meaningful for customers as well. So how that translates into the job that we do, which is to display something into the world, to have people connect with it, to people to resonate with the fashion line.
So I think the point on this one for me is that when we were looking at working with Lewis around the whole campaign, the campaign was called What's Your Drive? And it was finding more to Lewis than people have seen. And actually that's the thing, that a project I've been working on at the moment, is showing sides to people that haven't been out in the public eye, which is obviously what people are so interested to see. But you can't just ask them to open up and give the public, the fans, the media, a part of their life that they've held back for so long. So with What's Your Drive, we looked at the things that the public already know. So he loves race car driving, obviously. He loves tattoos. He loves music. He goes to gigs. He talks about he's a massive music superfan. Taking those things and then saying, right, well, how do we make that interesting? So in terms of the racing, it's not just car racing. He's an adrenaline junkie. So what can we do that makes that more interesting? How can we show a different side to that? The tattoos, it's not just about getting ink on his skin, it's about what they mean, and it's actually, he's a huge art lover. So how can we take, art as something that we can talk about with him that he's not really talked about in that specific channel or that exact avenue? And then, what was the third one?
I'm so sorry, I was looking at the time.
Right, perfect. Music, sorry. And then looking at superfans and not just thinking like, okay, cool, we could get someone to perform and do a gig for us, and it's someone that Lewis is a fan of, but actually, like, how have they engaged together? So what we did in Shanghai was we got some street artists from Shanghai to come and do a massive graffiti wall, and it was of some of the sayings that he has tattooed, but their own interpretation as well. And then Lewis kind of did a session with them where he workshopped and he added in some other words that he hadn't yet had tattooed, but he thought he was probably going to at some point. And then actually it was really fun. We did it on hoodies, and everyone at the end of the event could take a hoodie, and they had a piece of this completely unique art they could take home. For the speed, we had drone racing. So we had the best drone racer in Shanghai come and race Lewis Hamilton, and we had a assault course around the edge of the arena that they did together. And then at the end, we had Jessie J, who'd actually fortuitously just won the Singer in China, so it was absolutely huge. But he went on stage and he did a little strum on the guitar while she did some a cappella. So he brought out these different sides to him. People saw him do things that he hadn't done before. And that's, I think, in turn, the point of this slide is what made it really special for the fans. They got to see the Lewis that they knew, but doing something else and kind of coming out of his shell. And what, kind of with the bigger picture on this, was completely adorable was when he arrived. We'd obviously been set up for a couple of days, and we'd been running the show and doing all of our sound checks and tech checks and everything, and I'd actually been playing the part of Lewis Hamilton. And
Of course.
I don't have as many tattoos, but one day, uh, I won't. My husband won't let me. Um,
He's right at the front row, so yeah.
I can't see him. Oh, he's there. But yeah, and when he arrived, he said, "Oh, I explained that I've been doing it, and this was kind of the process what we wanted to do." And he said, "Oh, can I can I watch you do it?" So that he could see what we were asking, and then he could learn it, and he could see kind of what we wanted to get out of him emotion wise in each stage. And that meant that he felt so much more comfortable. And when we got to then doing it in front of the public, it was completely natural for him. And it was just a really wonderful process in terms of from the creative and the wonderful creative team that we had working on it through to him doing it himself and getting to the end and the smile on his face and then the content that came out of it and ultimately obviously the goal for Tommy Hilfiger was the selling out of the line within 24 hours. It was just a wonderful experience that was made so special by everyone that cared that this was so huge for him.
We had this discussion when we were putting this talk together about whether we wanted to add in examples of times it went wrong. Do you want to talk about Nicki Minaj here? Not that as a statement that's something that goes wrong, but like this
I always
specific
want to talk
incident.
about Nicki Minaj.
Yeah.
Well, so this is, I think, where I won't say the brand, but we did a really big activation in Times Square to launch a new product. It was a phone. And they brought in Nicki Minaj, and there was just no rhyme or reason to it. It was just a big face and a big name. She did a performance in Times Square, and then the brand took over all the screens, and we'd organised the whole thing. One, we got these most awkward pictures of her on the step and repeat, like holding the phone, being like, and it was just terrible. You know, when your media team then look at it afterwards and like, what the am I meant to do with this? Like, who's like, New York Times isn't going to run this. So that was terrible. And she also walked out of the toilets with Coke still coming out of her nose. So all in all, terrible experience. But I think it was just, obviously that's fun anecdotes, but it was so obvious that this partner wasn't invested in what we were doing or what we were trying to achieve. And there are, I mean, we've all definitely been involved in many of those and probably will again. But it's so lovely when you then get to work on the things that really mean something to someone and where the relationship, the partnership is really authentic because it makes it so much easier to do our jobs.
And if you have the opportunity to be in the room or you're even the decision maker for bringing that talent in, you can't always have this like deep, meaningful connection that we've spoken about here that is, I would say, almost parental in some ways with
Mm.
Tommy. But you can think about the meaning and the purpose that's there because especially when you have a big budget, it's easy to write a check and go, this person is famous.
Mm.
But everybody has to want to be involved. And then on this one, the last point on this one is good things happen when people are treated well. I bless this bloody photo. I think it's so sweet because everyone is relaxed and they're connecting. Um, what do you want to say about treating people well, other than do it?
um, I think realistically, I mean, it's obvious these are very high profile people. It goes in the media. People get told if they're not treated well. I think really for this, what was again wonderful is Lewis was so polite and nice to every single person. So again, like as I was saying before, that the driver, the runners, the team miking him up, everything were great to him. He was great back, and I think that kindness breeds kindness, respect breeds respect, and I think it's so important in I mean, I think it's important in every aspect of life, but I think in these scenarios when you're trying to amplify and you're really trying to bring something to life, um, just be nice with it, and it will come back tenfold.
Yeah, I think this is precisely it. And uh, if we treat everyone, I think how you treat the intern is how you should treat the client. And if you're carrying that through, it does just create a really good environment, which leads us on perfectly to overcompensating, which is A24 and Prime Video. This is a new show out with Benny Drama. It's just started streaming now. It's a gorgeous romp. It is both heartfelt and bawdy is probably the best word to use. Katie's dropping hardcore anecdotes and I'm questioning saying the word bawdy. And this is really interesting. This is an event that we have in how many days? 6?
Uh, 3 working days.
There we go. Who counts? Do we have days off? That's fine. And this story really is a lesson about supporting the evolution of a celebrity, someone who is coming up and turning into something at a very, very rapid speed. So this is Benny Drama, also known as Benito Skinner, who you might have met from TikTok. And this is him in Vanity Fair, looking hot and gorgeous and queer and cool, and all the things I think were amazing about him. But this is where he started. He started on TikTok doing skits, doing quite bold and wild skits, including various
Incredibly annoying. They were so
family
annoying.
members. Yes.
Sorry.
No, no, it's true. And then here he is in GQ. So it's a meteoric rise, and this is his first show. This is a show that he's was thinking about writing in college. It's set in college, and it kind of sits outside of time in that Charlie XCX is in it, Megan Fox features, but it's also about this period of time that he grew up in, which was roughly the 2010s. And so this really is about how to support a celebrity as they become a celebrity. God, I feel like, do you want to say something?
Um, no, I do on the next slide.
Okay, there we go. So we're making the first time special. Everyone loves a virginity gag, and especially in a college comedy.
Yeah, I think my point on this, and there is some echoing of what we said with Lewis.
Okay,
Right.
that's it.
Okay.
So sorry, timings. Do come to Q&A, hear about Beyonce.